Statement, and then I'll be happy to take any questions. Just kind of putting the final closure on the Georgia Southern contest. I think I expressed it pretty well on Saturday night. Just a lot of frustration, man. The psychology of winning, learning how to win games, and a big part of that is making plays in critical moments. So when you look back at our first three games, we have made pretty significant errors in critical moments, whether that was the kickoff return against SMU, obviously the late turnover against Georgia Southern, and I think those are things that you cannot do when your margin is slim like ours is. And so I think that this it's unfortunate, but these are growing pains, and it's just part of the process. And I think ultimately we'll be a better team because of these things, because we've got to learn how to win, and you also have to deserve to win. And that's when you play good teams, which we're playing good teams week in and week out. Our margin for error is very small, and that's something that we've just got to continue to work on. I think there were some positives out of that game. Clearly, we were able to move the ball effectively. We got out of rhythm. 24 penalties is hard to overcome for both sides. There was a lot. The flow of the offense on both sides in the second half was really dictated more by the officials than it was the offensive and defensive coordinators. And so hopefully we can play a cleaner game moving forward and not have that disruption in our flow on the offensive side of the ball. Was very pleased with the way we played defense in the second half. But we did have a critical lapse at the end of the first half that in hindsight was very critical in the game. Two 15-yard penalties, one an unsportsmanlike conduct, one a personal foul that led them into a position where they could play. And we had a bad call. It was in a very similar situation down there. We did not play a call that was going to be our best in that place, but you still got to execute it. And so getting a post safety to overlap, playing a little tighter coverage into the boundary, to their credit, they operated it, and now we're on to Minnesota. And when I look at Minnesota, PJ Fleck coach teams have a very specific DNA. They are huge and physical up front. They want to run the ball. They get into a lot of heavy personnel groups, more two tight end sets than we've seen in the first two games combined, probably, or three games. And so that'll be the challenge, is can we hold up physically with their massive offensive line. Really good runners, 24-1 are really good runners, man. They run behind their pads, they finish runs. I really like those kids. I think the quarterback is getting more and more comfortable. You see him week 1 against North Carolina, see the progress he makes week 2 against Rhode Island, getting more comfortable with the system as a transfer quarterback. He's got some nice targets to throw to. Number 11, number 9 on the outside. He will use his tight ends in the pass game, and they've got not just 4 of their 5 starters on the offensive line return, 9 of their 11 starters overall. And so it's a very experienced offensive group, and that's been his kind of recipe for success over time, is build a roster, keep your guys together, and then be able to make a run when you've got a veteran group. On the defensive side of the ball, they got a new defensive coordinator, Coach Heatherman, and he brings it's a similar system, but I think he brings more of an aggressive mindset than the previous defensive play caller did. They're long and rangy up front. 17 and 97 are real live defensive linemen. They're a problem. They're both, one's 6'5", 265. The other one's 6'3", 295. So big bodies that have some twitch. A very experienced inside linebacker, number 45. I think he leads the team in PBUs right now. And just smart, tough, Big Ten inside linebacker that has a ton of experience. And I like number 5 in particular. He's one of their DBs that plays corner, and then he'll play some different things in their dime and nickel packages. I think he's a really, really good football player. And then on special teams, they got a guy with a big leg, a lefty kicker with a big leg, and I think they've got a dynamic punt returner too. So, we're going into Big Ten territory, have our hands full, and we got to go play really well. So happy to take any questions.
You mentioned kind of the mistakes toward the end of games. I guess how much of that is just learning how to play close games and win close games, because it's not like a lot of these guys have done that the last couple of years?
Well, I think there's a lot of that. I know when I took over at Montana State, we had a real talent issue on our roster, and I knew that kind of because it was pre-portal, we had this thing that we talked about a lot, was like, here's the way this is going to go. Unfortunately, we're going to lose big early, and then we'll lose small, and then we'll figure it out a little bit more, and then we'll win small, and then we'll figure it out a little bit more, and then we'll win big. And that's kind of what the DNA of that program was over a 3-year period of time, and into a 4-year period of time. But I see the growth and the learning a little faster here. And I think some of that is because we can add experienced players in the portal. But right now we're losing small. and we got to have that breakthrough. You know, we had the win small against Troy, but you know that could have gone either way too. You know, we're really close to being 3-0. We're really close to being 0-3. Let's kind of call it what it is, right? And I think that's kind of who we are right now. Until we have that moment where the light just that kind of flicks on and we go, okay, this is how this is done. I think that's who we're going to be. And that moment has got to be win a tight game against a good opponent. Win a tight game against a good opponent and then back it up with another performance. I don't think this is just going to be a breakthrough win for us. I think it's got to be a series of successes that allows us to now change our mindset. And we're having those moments within games, but we're not having that consistently throughout the game. And so, I wish I had a crystal ball and could tell you when that moment's coming. I know it's coming. I just don't know exactly when. But I know this, it can't just be a flash in the pan. It can't be, hey, we played well here and we got the win and now we let our guard down. I didn't love our week of practice last week. I don't know if it was the travel coming back, but I didn't love our week of practice. And I addressed that with the guys today. I thought they came out with a renewed sense of focus and energy this morning. And that's what we're going to need to be. We can never punch the clock here. We can never do that. Every day, every rep, we got to go out and we got to push to get better. And that's just who we are right now. We don't have a lot of erasers, and we got to rely on doing things really, really well. It's hard to be disciplined over a 60-minute game. You're going to have your ebbs and flows, but we've got to do it in the most critical moments, which is what we did at Troy, and that's why we won the game. We won the middle eight in that ball game, and we finished the ball game, right? And the two losses that we've had, we had lapses at the end of the first half and at the end of the game that cost us.
When you look back at that Hail Mary, I mean, did there seem like a pitchback option there? And how?
No, they did a good job of corralling him. I think the critical play was the one before that. I felt like the guy was in what we call pitch phase, which is, it's even to a half a yard behind. And they make the call. I don't have to agree with it. But if we're throwing that from the 40 and not the 30, he's in the end zone. And the guy might be the best Hail Mary guy I've ever seen. I mean, you can practice that a million times and it never works. We've practiced it 3 or 4 times in live situations, and he's won it every time and then got it in the game as well. So I thought, great job of fighting to the end. B. Lou moving around, buying ourselves some time, getting the ball as far down there as we could. We'd already used our second to last play to try to get us into position where we could throw the Hail Mary, and unfortunately we got a penalty on it.
When you look at the penalties, I mean, that was probably the reason you guys lost that game, obviously, the fumble and
The turnover and the penalties, yeah.
But what is your message to the team about, you want to have a swagger out there, but you don't want it to turn into...
Yeah, I mean, I think those two at the end of the half, I mean, I think that was, like I said, I mean, we're done, as I told the team, we're done with personal agendas in this outfit. And that's making business decisions and stepping out of the way. That's getting into a personal battle that turns into a negative situation where we get a penalty and you cross a line, right? Those are the things that we're done with in this program. And so I don't care who it is. I don't care what happens. That's over, and I clearly failed these guys in that aspect. And so that will not happen again. And if it does happen again, there will be a severe and swift consequence for it, because the one positive from this is we're walking that line, we crossed the line, and that was the first time it really hurt us. And so I think that lesson can now be learned in a really tangible way, and we can tighten the screws on them a little bit more because we have evidence, hey, this can cost us a game.
And that's like taking away playing time? That's
100%. That's what these guys want. So, that happens, you can sit over with me. It's that simple.
What's the threshold for that? Is that
Did they get a penalty?
critical moment? Or
Did they get a
too
penalty?
many?
That's the only threshold. Did they get a penalty? I mean, because you can't play this game with 2 hands around your neck. You can't. You got to go play with emotion and physicality, but you also have to know when I get right to that edge and that official says that's enough, you turn around and walk away. You don't say one more word. You don't push the guy off. You don't do anything. You say, yes, sir. You turn around and go back to the huddle. That's it. And so, but we don't want to, we're not going to cower down. We're not going to do that. Like, I want guys that are tough, aggressive, physical football players, but don't cross the line. And we've learned where the line is now. And if we cross the line, there'll be consequences. And so, but we can't stop playing the way we're playing. Okay? I keep saying we have a small margin for error. Like, this is a team that we've built better depth and we've got better talent, but we're playing with a lot of the same guys. And so, that being said, we got to play really, really hard, really, really aggressive, and really, really physical and smarter. That's how we're going to win games. Like, we're not going to come over here and, just blow people out. That's not who the 2024 version of the Wolfpack is. But if we do those things, we're going to drag everybody into deep water. And there'll be tight games, and we'll start to figure out how to win these tight games, and pretty soon we crack the seal and we're rolling.
As you described Minnesota's offense, it kind of sounds like what you want to build. I guess, do you see similarities in that program? And what
Yeah, I
you're
think
trying to get
he's always kind of had that mindset. Like, he's very much ball control the clock, the tempo, the pace of the game, win the time of possession, don't beat yourself, play good on special teams, and be solid on defense. I think that's a good formula. I think over time we'll become more explosive on offense. Like, I think it's just about us recruiting, having the depth at receiver that we want, and continuing to recruit really good backs. And but I stylistically, we'll open it up more. We're going to be more creative on offense. But I do respect how he goes about building a program that's maybe not a top-tier program in the Big Ten that is able to compete at a really high level year in and year out because they have an identity.
You guys are getting a nice check to go to this game. It's a one-game series. I guess, what's your philosophy in terms of scheduling as you get more involved in this?
Yeah, I think moving forward, number one, I think we need to play more conference games. I don't think this is good for anybody to play, the small margin of conference games. So we need to play more conference games, which then in turn, we don't have to play as many guarantee games. And I think everybody in the league would agree with this. In my scheduling philosophy, we should play an A opponent every year, a B opponent every year, and a C opponent every year. And what I mean by that is, yeah, we should step up and play a Power 5 opponent, but we shouldn't be playing 2 or 3 of those. That's not good for the program, okay? We need to play a really competitive group of 5 team, like going to Troy or having Georgia Southern. Like, one of those is appropriate, and then you have your C opponent that's, hey, we're bringing in a Sac State or whoever, you're going to bring in 1AA. So you're getting a paycheck, right? You're getting a home-and-home competition, hopefully against good G5 competition, and you're bringing somebody in. That would be my ideal, and then play more league games. That would be ideal for us. Right now, we've got, in this particular situation, we have 6 non-conference games this year. Like, I don't know how that helps a league get competitive balance. I really wish I was playing San Diego State's schedule. I really wish that. But we're not. So what do we got to do? We got to go on the road to Boise. We got to go on the road to UNLV. We got to play Colorado State. We got to play Air Force. We got to play Fresno State. We got to play San Jose State. That's not a balanced schedule because we're not playing Wyoming. We're not playing Utah State. We're not playing San Diego State. We're not playing New Mexico. So somehow we got the top half of the league. So you get what I'm saying. Like, if you don't play as many league games, then year in and year out, there's no competitive balance to a league. So in my opinion, why be in a league if you're going to do that? I mean, I feel like we're half independent right now. We're playing such a small number of league games with this Oregon State scheduling thing, and I'm pretty vocal about that. Nobody listens to me in the Mountain West, but I'm pretty vocal about how we need to play more league games.
So you'd like 9 then? 9 league games?
Yes. Now, why have a larger conference if you're only going to play, in our case this year, 6 league games? I don't get that. So anyway, you know how I feel.
This was supposed to kind of be a homecoming for Caden Johnson, dislocated his elbow.
Yeah.
Do you think he'll be available for this game?
He's going to travel with us, see how he does throughout the course of the week, and we're hopeful he'll be able to brace up and go, but we'll wait and see. But yeah, I mean, it's awesome to have him back home.
What have been your thoughts on his play? I mean, obviously made that huge play at Troy, and it seems like he's played pretty well.
Yeah, I think he's been our most consistent guy on the edge. We've gotten some splash plays out of Henry and Chris, but Caden's been our most consistent player and has a lot of maturity and a lot of leadership, and so lean on him for a lot of stuff.
It seems like a couple of guys went out. Is everybody else okay heading into this game?
Yeah, I think so. I think we had some cramping issues. We had Caden's elbow, but it was a physical game. I think both sides played physical. It was a very different game, obviously, than they had played the week before. I think they'd gotten exposed on some things and tightened some things up on the defensive side, and obviously we were able to see some of the things that they were doing and play a better brand of defense against them. And so, yeah, it was a well-played physical game.
Sounds like they want to run the ball. How would you assess your guys' run defense?
Depends on who we're playing, right? I think there were some holes in our game against Troy. And obviously this last week, stylistically, what Georgia Southern does is different. And so that didn't present as many problems, but we'll be tested this week for sure, especially because we haven't played as many 12 personnel sets throughout the first 3 games as we're going to have to play against Minnesota.
How do you feel like going into the South and playing in front of that large crowd and in that environment will maybe help you guys because you're going to be in front of a large crowd again?
Yeah, we got a lot of guys that have played in front of large crowds. The one thing I'll say is that, a lot of times it'll bring out the best in you, right? In terms of knowing you're going into a hostile environment, you're going to have a little more juice in the stadium, stepping up a level in competition. And I think a lot of times that film gets our guys' attention perhaps, and they're going to prepare a little bit differently maybe in terms of their focus level. Hopefully they learn to do that on a consistent basis week in and week out. But I also think that, you know, I mean, football's football. You know, it's, you walk in, it's cool, and then I don't look around during the game, so, you know, you just go play.
Why do you think you guys have been so much more competitive? Obviously, there was a large gap to close to even play competitive games, and it seems like you guys have closed that pretty quickly. What's been the
Yeah.
biggest key in having, you know, potentially 3-0 out there?
Well, I think our guys are playing really hard. And I think that's the secret sauce, right? If you play with great effort, then you're going to have a chance. And I also think that we've managed games to put ourselves in position. Like, we're not asking our defense to play 90 snaps a game. You know, I think we're doing a good job of protecting them in some different situations. We've been really, really good on third down on offense, which obviously that keeps possession of the ball for us, and they don't have it. We have not turned the ball over, with the exception of the one fumble down in the low red zone. That was devastating, but one turnover in 3 games with a new outfit, that's, you know, if you'd have told me that going in the year, I'd probably been okay with that. Conversely, we only have had 1 takeaway. And so we've got to be better at that. Like, that's, to me, the difference is how can we give our offense more possessions, and how can we continue to play, you know, kind of ball control to make sure that we don't have our defense out there playing 100 snaps.
I think that takeaway was your first defensive possession. So I guess what do you think's been, I guess, limiting that ability?
Missed opportunities, because it's not like that we haven't had our hands on some footballs. Even in this last game, I mean, I think Caden was a whole spy dropper. Ball hit him right in the hands on one. Quarterback didn't see him drop out, and then we had Drew underneath the spot route to the field side. And, I mean, you know, I don't know if he's been tall enough or what, but, you know, that would have been big, because we would have got possession of the ball. I mean, he had some green grass in front of him. We would have had the ball somewhere around the 30-yard line going in. And so we've got to take advantage of the opportunities when they present themselves. We've had a lot of dropped interceptions. And the other thing that we've got to start doing, we've got to start attacking the ball. And I use the fumble as a really good example, because number one had 14 tackles in that game, but the biggest play he made was that play, because he was in a chase tackle position, and, you know, Savion's fighting for extra yards, and he didn't care about the tackle. He went after the ball, and that's the game. You know, the ball is the program, and you got to die with the football on offense, and you got to die to get it out on defense. And I thought that was a great example, a living example for our guys, and I think showcased how important that is.
When do you assess the special teams as a former special teams coordinator? I guess what have been your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we've been really inconsistent. Our specialists have been inconsistent. You know, game one, Guy Gillespie's all-world. This last week, not so much. All right, game one, you know, Matt Killam's great. 2 weeks ago, he's not. This week, he makes his kicks, you know, but he kicked one out of bounds and gave him the ball in 35. We seem to have a breakdown at least once a game on kickoff coverage. So, you know, candidly, we need to be better in that phase. You know, I think it's been very inconsistent. And I think part of this preseason mindset was finding our identity, right? Who are we? What do we do well? Who are our playmakers? Being highly competitive and improving week to week. I think I've seen incremental progress on offense and defense, but I think I've seen inconsistent progress on special teams, and so we've got to level that out in our next 2 games.
You guys above 50% on third down on offense, like you mentioned. Is that the yardage to get, or is that the play call?
We've had some third and longs, both the last
especially
2
last
weeks.
game.
Yeah,
So
and
what
so
do
I
we-
think, well, protection and getting into the right play. And one of the things that, you know, we've done is we've attacked the middle of the field. Our intermediate passing game has been better than I thought it was going to be. You know, we don't necessarily have a lot of guys that are just going to blow the top off the defense, but we have big targets that run really good routes, and they have good ball skills. And so I think Brandon's comfortable with a lot of those reads. He's doing a good job of getting through the progression. And, you know, in particular, the 3 starting wideouts with the tight end, that's a nice kind of, there's a lot of good options for him. You kind of got, you know, our shaky guy in the slot in Marcus. We've got a big threat at tight end, a big body that, you know, kind of a security blanket for him. And then 2 outside guys in Tez and Jaden that, you know, are good route runners and have good ball skills. So, but it starts with protection, and our O-line's done a good job in those situations. We'll be tested this week. These guys will bring more pressure on third down than we've seen the last 2 weeks.